Hello, Lopes Country. I'm coming to you from AI Outer Space. This is to emphasize our course, the worldview. What I'd like to do now, I'd like to give you just a brief overview of what we're going to be doing in the class. I'd like to start with just talking a little bit about myself, and then we'll talk a little bit about how you can do well in the course, and we'll also talk a little bit about the content in the course. All right, about me. I have a uh, Master's of Divinity and a Master's of Art in Historical Theology from Ashland Theological Seminary. I have a doctorate of ministry with an emphasis in family systems theory and leadership, also from Ashland Theological Seminary. I've been a pastor and a church administrator, and I've been teaching online for over 20 years. I have a wife of 45 years and two children, both are in the medical field. I love to play golf. I'm not very good at it, but I love to play it and also enjoy racquetball. I'm not as fast as I used to be. All right, enough about me. Let's talk a little bit about the class, how you can do well in the class. There's a couple of things. First thing, a very simple thing, is make sure that you check the announcements. When you're looking at an announcement, if you'd be kind enough to acknowledge that you have viewed the announcement, that will be a help to me as well. I put a lot of information in the announcements, and so they will help you to get through the course with the least amount of difficulty. At least that's my intention. Also, what I would strongly recommend is that you post early and often to the discussions. Each unit or each topic has two discussions. The first discussion begins, they both actually begin on Monday, but the first discussion, discussion one, will conclude on Wednesday. And in terms of your initial post, you can still post throughout the week to both discussions. But as far as your initial post to the questions for the discussion, they need to be made for discussion one, before Wednesday, and for discussion two, uh, before the end of Friday. So by Wednesday and by Friday for those two discussions. Make sure that your discussions are complying with what is required. You will be required to make two substantive, and that's something we'll talk about here in just a minute, two substantive posts for 2 days. I'm sorry, two substantive posts each day for 4 days throughout the week for a total of 8 posts. Two of those are your responses, your initial posts to the discussion questions, discussion one question and discussion two questions. And then the other 6 are your responses to your peers and to some of the uh, uh, posts that I will make available to you for additional uh, participation points, or at least to get participation points. I will also be putting in some classroom assessment posts. I usually will pin these at the very top of the post, and this helps me to get a handle on how well you all are doing in the course and if you are learning what we are hoping that you will be learning. So let's talk a little bit about a substantive post. For the first week, I'm very lenient. The only substantive requirement is that you have at least 150 words in your post. Now, you can post as many posts as you want, but in order to get participation credit, you have to make a substantive post. And I'm very specific as to what constitutes a substantive post, and you will see that in the announcements each week, and you will also see that in this video that I'm sharing with you now. So for week one, you must have 150 words or more, and you have to avoid writing errors. You are expected to write at university level writing skills, correct grammar, correct punctuation, and correct spelling. There are many helps for you to help you to make sure that's all taken care of before you post it for grading. Now, in weeks 2 through 7, the substantive requirement increases significantly. You still have to have 150 plus words. You have to avoid writing errors. You have to have at least one in-text and full reference citation from a topic resource. That's the Beginning of Wisdom or textbook, or a topic overview, or any of the other resources that are listed in the topic. And then you also need to have a reference to a Bible passage or a quote of scripture, Bible scripture. So that will be what is the basic requirement for a substantive post. If you want to get credit for participation posts, then you must comply with these substantive requirements. Another thing that you need to do in order to do well in the class is to be sure you're keeping up with the readings. This is especially important when you're trying to keep up for the reading quizzes at the end of the week. Also, you'll want to make sure that you submit your work on time. The GCU policy, which I adhere to 100%, is that you are going to be penalized should you have a late post or submit an assignment late. Is 10% per day penalty. So you really want to make sure that you're ahead of the game and do your best to get everything submitted on time. Well, let's take just a moment and talk about our study. We're going to be looking at our textbook, as that's basically the outline for our course, although there are more chapters than there are weeks for the class that you have in the Beginning of Wisdom. So there are 7 topics, and each of these topics will align with the week that we're studying. Week 1, we're going to be looking at understanding worldview. Week 2, we're going to be looking at creation. Week 3, we'll be looking at the fall. Week 4, we'll be looking at Jesus Christ. Week 5, we'll be looking at Jesus in terms of his redemption and the renewal that he brings. Week 6, we'll be looking at worldview implications. There we'll be focusing on truth and ethics. And week 7, we'll be looking at living with purpose. The other element, primary element in our study will, of course, be the Bible. We're going to be looking at the Bible throughout each of the 7 weeks. So that's a quick overview. Now let me just make some concluding comments here. Some of you will have a good general knowledge of the Bible. You're coming here and you've already, you may be a believer, or you may at least be someone who's very familiar with the Bible. Some of you may have never read the Bible and might not even be very familiar with it at all. So my recommendation to all of you is to approach this class like you would any other. If you're taking a course in a subject that you have never had any knowledge of, all you do is you look at the textbooks, you read, you look at what is expected of you, you follow study guides, and you learn the material, and then you share the material back in your posts, writing assignments, and quizzes. And that is how you demonstrate that you know the material. So please don't treat this as something very unique. I have had some students in the past that say, well, I'm not a Christian, so I don't know how to answer this question. We don't ask you to, you're not being forced to become a Christian, but you are being asked to read the material, look at the Bible passages that are in the material, so that you can have an understanding of what it is that we are talking about when we're talking about the Christian worldview. So this class is going to be challenging, but it's not super difficult. So make sure that you are keeping up as best as you can. Frequently check the announcements and the messages, and be assured of this one thing. I will be praying for each of you throughout the 7 weeks, and who knows, maybe even longer than that. But I know how difficult it is to be managing a life where you have a job, you might have children, who knows what type of circumstances that we are all dealing with. And then you're adding into that the work of an online class. I'm aware of that, and I want you to know I'll be praying for you. But do yourself a favor and just hit the ground running, keep up with everything, and you should be able to do quite well. And uh, if you have any questions or issues, don't hesitate to message me. If necessary, we can have a phone conversation. And if even more necessary, we can have a Zoom meeting. So I am praying for your success, and I just want you to know that I'm on your side, but we do have to do uh, a good effort in learning the material. So God bless, and I'm looking forward to getting to know each of you a little bit better as we go through the weeks. See you later.